I saw the bootleg Deluxe Venom on AliExpress and I decided to get the figure with box. And look what I got. Literally the figure with the box all folded up. Here's the original Deluxe Venom and here's the bootleg version. Immediately at the front, you can see the missing Hasbro logo at this corner. And I'm actually surprised that the bootleg box is the same shape as the original. You can see that it is the deluxe shape with the side slanted just like the original. Because for the bootleg Defender Strange, the sides are not slanted, it's really rectangular, not like the original deluxe boxes. You can check out my review of the Defender Strange after watching this one. At the top of the original, there is the hanger for the packaging. The bootleg doesn't have it. And at the bottom, the bootleg is missing all those information. And instead, they printed the same logo just like at the top. The same picture is printed at the side. And just like at the bottom, the details are all missing at the back, including the Hasbro logo at this bottom corner. And also the word Marvel at the top. So to spot the bootleg packaging, it is quite obvious. The packaging cardboard is really thin, unlike the original, which is thicker, and the plastic is also really soft. You can see how soft it is compared to the original, which is quite solid. Now let's compare the figure. Here is the original Deluxe Venom and the bootleg version. I'm going to share with you 24 differences that I managed to spot between them. But first of all, the worst thing is that the moment I took out from the packaging, the app crunch was kind of stuck. So I was trying to move it forward, and then suddenly there was a click and it moved forward, and not only just it moved forward, it became loose. Look at that. So the click forward was I think a ratchet joint inside which cracked or break or something, and now the app crunch is totally loose. So yeah, I really don't know what happened because the app crunch was kind of stuck. I'm not sure whether this is a common problem for the bootleg, but yeah, so my bootleg is broken for the app crunch part at least. Look at that. And since we are talking about the joints, the arms, waist swivel, and the hip joints are loose. Look at that. This is really loose. The waist swivel is loose, and the arms as well. This one clicks. Look at that for the left hand only. For the original, the left arm does not have that ratchet sound. And the joints are not loose. Look, the waist swivel is tight and so are the hip joints. For the bootleg, the hip joint is probably loose because of this. You can see there's a gap there. It isn't glued properly. The other one is fine though. But yeah, this is really an obvious gap, and this hip joint is more loose compared to the other one. But this one isn't tight either. On the original, the teeth is more clearly defined and well sculpted. But on the bootleg, the teeth is really terrible. It's kind of all molded together or something. There isn't any clear sculpt unlike the original. The tongue is shorter on the bootleg. You can see the tip here doesn't have much curl compared to the original, where you can see it twirls more at the end. And also the color is different. The bootleg has it more in pink compared to the original, which is red. Next, still at the mouth, the red part over here fills up the gap along the face nicely. But for the bootleg, this part over here does not fill up the edges nicely. You can see there are gaps near the sides, unlike the original, which really fills up the whole area well. No gaps at all along the edges of that part. For the original, the paintwork has bluish parts at the bicep, the lower abs, the upper thigh, at the tricep area, and also at the back of the calves. But for the bootleg, you can see it is mostly all black. Don't really have any shading of blue unlike the original. The original figure is slightly taller than the bootleg, mostly because of the legs. The original leg is slightly longer than the bootleg. You can see the waist swivel of the bootleg is slightly lower than the original. And because of those, The shoulder and the top of the neck of the original is also higher, overall making the original taller than the bootleg, just slightly taller. For the original, the circular part of the neck pack protrudes out from the neck, this part here, all the way to the other side. But for the bootleg, it's really flushed with the neck, it does not protrude out on either side of the neck pack. And for the head, the top part of the head is also bluish for the original, and the veins are better sculpted on the original. The veins are less defined on the bootleg. For the spider logo at the front, the bootleg has this part here more narrow compared to the original. The original is kind of more circular, the top part of the spider logo over here. And the veins on the neck is more clearly defined and sculpted on the original as compared to the bootleg. Look at how well sculpted the veins are here on the original. And here's the bootleg. The rectangular patch on the hands is really smaller compared to the original on both hands. And at the back, plenty of things to share about. The bottom of the spider logo is different on the bootleg. There are these grey stains on the right shoulder ball. Really don't know what this is about or whether this is a consistent thing between the bootlegs, but yeah, mine has this. And for these big and smaller rectangular parts at the back, the edges are rounded and not really sharp for the big and the small rectangle. You can see how rounded it is at this corner of the small rectangle compared to the bootleg, whereby the edges are really sharp and not rounded at all. Look at how sharp it is. And the corner of the small rectangle is also sharper compared to the original. For the spider logo, you can see the white part is painted all the way to the front under the ab crunch, but for the bootleg, it isn't painted all the way to the front. There is a slight gap where there is missing white paintwork and does not connect to the front of the lower torso. For the bootleg, these two circles have a whitish circumference. And for the back piece, the circular joints on the original is actually slightly smaller in diameter compared to the bootleg. And also on the inner side of the original, you can see the number 1, which is upside down, and this mirror image N sculpted. But for the bootleg, on the inner side, there isn't anything there. Here's the back pieces attached to the figures. These black lines between the legs are thicker compared to the ones on the bootleg, which is so much thinner. And for the spider logo at the back, the original is symmetrical. You can see that this is the center of the spider and the legs starts off from here. And it is the same distance apart from the center compared to the bootleg, whereby it's not really centralized. You can see this part of the black line is closer to the center as compared to the starting point of this side of the black line. So basically, it's kind of off-center. After attaching the back piece, the gap down here on the bootleg is wider compared to the original, which is more narrow. On the other side is okay though. It's just for the right arm of the bootleg. For the original, you can barely see a gap over here at the neck. But for the bootleg, there is a bigger gap here. And last but not least, there is a gap at the waist joint, unlike the original, which is more seamless. So unlike the bootleg retro Spidey, which is really superb and a really good figure, this bootleg Venom to me is really poor in quality. At a glance, it does look kind of decent, but the quality of the plastic, the joints, and the overall minor details on it, which is different from the original, makes this bootleg figure inferior to the original. The bootleg retro Spidey is kind of slightly pricey, but at the very least, it is kind of worth it. The packaging of this bootleg Deluxe Venom is about the same quality as the bootleg Defender Strange, and same goes for the figure. The bootleg Monster Venom figure that we got last time is quite good quality compared to this one. At the very least, it isn't that expensive. It actually cost a bit less than the bootleg Defender Strange. Thanks for watching. Do check out my review of the bootleg retro Spidey and the bootleg Monster Venom figure over here.